I honestly have no idea why that played. Yeah, that I. This is my first time streaming on here, so I guess I have a few kinks to iron out. But hello, everybody. Cam of Cam and Focus here. You might know me from the Geek News Now YouTube channel. My Cam and Focus show is dedicated to discussing film, mostly in a way that enhances the viewing experience. Every now and then, I put out a nice little roast of a film that really rubs me the wrong way. But today I'm doing something a little bit different. Today I'm joined by a friend of mine who actually works in film. He's a photographer. I believe you attended Full Sail University.
Yes.
All right. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're about.
So, my name is Tannen. I go by Teo, and I am a photographer going into cinematography or filmmaking. And that aspect of it is really about the art of filmmaking, like the colors that you see and the emotion those colors make you feel. Outside of that, I'm a dad of two. I have an amazing fiance. I moved out here to Missouri. Me and Cam were based out of Florida together. We were a bunch of scene beans at one time. We really grew up and filled into our shoes. So decided to start running a photography company about a year ago almost. Me and my fiance, we decided that that's what we needed to do, and we did that full force. We didn't take any side jobs, no 9 to 5s. We decided this is what we love doing, and now we're only growing. So it's exciting being here, having one of these one-on-one interviews with you.
Yeah, definitely. So you're doing this pretty much full time now, huh?
Yeah, full time. Everything that I'm doing is full time. We actually recently just acquired a $900 drone that we're going to be using for commercial, anything kind of side gigs, real estate photography, and everything that fuels the project and keeps us going.
Definitely, definitely. So what made you want to what made you want to get into this kind of thing? Like, what was the spark that lit the fire?
Um, so Sierra, my fiance, my partner, she would like vlogging. She liked videoing herself. Talking about her story, what she was doing, her traveling, her lifestyle. And I ended up picking up the camera one day, and it was very recent. So almost over a year ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So all of this has come into fruition that quickly. Um, I just started messing around with the camera, following her with the camera, and I'm like, whoa, it's not about the direction, like director aspect, but what I could be telling from where I'm holding the camera, the lights that play, the flares, everything that came with it. It just felt magical, and I felt something in my gut pulling me to it. So I decided to look into film schools. Hey, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I ended up finding. I ended up reaching out to
Oh,
admissions, and
you're kind of breaking up there. You're kind of jumping in and out. Your picture's frozen.
can you hear me now?
I can kind of hear you, but your picture's still frozen. Oh, the picture changed. The picture changed. Okay, well, you're still kind of jumping in and out there. I think it might be a connection issue.
Hmm. All right, hold on.
But I can see you moving around now.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So, line, if that happens again. Um, Bottom line, the Sierra wanted someone to videotape her. I decided I liked videotaping. I reached out to Full Sail and said, "Hey, I don't have the money to do this." They're like, "Well, you could always try to take out loans." And I said, "I can't do that. I don't have any of the credit." So I ended up going online and I found the president of the school. I found his information on a website called Rocket Reach. That's not a me just throwing out a name or like a promo or anything, but it was really useful. I found his phone number and I just texted him. I told him who I was, what I wanted to do, and sent him some of my photography. And to my surprise, the very next day, he reached out to me and said, "Let's see what we can do." And I got a full scholarship to film school.
Wow, that's awesome. Good for
I,
you. Yeah, that's really cool. You know, it's interesting to see, you know, different photographers work because it almost becomes like a language in a way. You know, there's a video that was floating around a while back. I'm sure that you've seen it at some point. It was just a person standing in a black room with a light that revolves around their face, and the way that the shadows cast across their face, it changes how their expression looks. And so, you know, people talk about what goes into photography, you know, the lighting, the composition, and things of that nature. And that's the first thing that I think of. It's like that's such a perfect example of how especially lighting just by itself can completely change the context of what you're looking at.
right, I completely agree, and that's why I think cinematography is so powerful because it's motion, it's photography in motion. You have to enable the ability to capture something and continue to capture it and continue to transpire that image into more and pull in your audience. And man, it's really one of a kind.
Yes, definitely. And it's not just about what draws your eyes to the picture, but it's also about what keeps those eyes there. So yeah, that's really cool. Now, when it comes to film, your specialty is photography, cinematography. Who do you look up to the most?
Peter Jackson, Mark Ravel, Ravel Mark from Euphoria. He's a great
Hmm.
cinematographer. And it's not more about what the story is telling, but how they are telling the story. So Peter Jackson, he's an OG, original Lord of the Rings through and through. Just the way he played that out and continued to work with them in making The Hobbit and the underlining story that they told, like the dark and sinister lighting that they played on. So Marcel Grab definitely is number one for Euphoria, just because of he told a drama of high schoolers, but he made it like it was happening to us and how, really feelings. So I guess that's it. And I gotta say, I'm really kind of my own fan, and I hope it's not a god complex thing. Like on what I'm building. So
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you're making art, I mean, yeah, you know, the artist is their own worst critic, but at the same time, you really have to love and appreciate what you do. You know, it's not just about, you know, seeing what someone else does and trying to emulate it. You know, it's also about it's art in general. You got to make it your own,
right,
and appreciating what you're doing is definitely a huge thing. You know, it's definitely not a god complex to say that you're a fan of your own work, because you know someone's got to like it, right?
right. Well, there's artists that I want to. I wouldn't say imitate, but I'll tell you a little bit of preview. I'll tell you something I'm working on. I'm working on a Netflix series called Two Voices, and it's about life, what I've gone through. I'm excited to work on that, but I'm also working on. Remember the book, The Magic Treehouse, as a kid?
Yes.
So I'm working on an animated movie for that, and it's gonna be the style of Polar Express.
Okay. Really? Oh, you're frozen again.
Two completely different genres, and it's just real. And the other one is animation. It's a book favorite, so that's kind of what I'm going for. Is just recreating new things.
Gotcha. Now, now this is this is definitely a more basic question, but you know what film, but besides, you know, Peter Jackson's works and stuff like that, what film would you say completely encapsulates everything that you look for in a well shot movie? You know, because I can tell you definitely for me, it's anything from Roger Deakins. First of all, the guy's a legend.
Right.
Um, and so things like Blade Runner 2049, Sicario. And then you have Greg Fraser, his work on, the Batman, Rogue One, Dune, things like that really work to capture not just the drama of the moment, but also the monumental scale of what you're seeing. So in that sense, what film would you say you look to for that type of creative inspiration?
I mean, you really hit the nail on the head, with Blade Runner, Dune, because those are great styles of cinematography. But I also like the more simple versions, like La La Land, and with Sandra Bullock, The Revenant. Um,
Okay.
so these are all very like shot variously different, and I think it's important to look at how directors shoot. Like Lawrence of Arabia, are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, so Lawrence of Arabia is a great, most of the movie is shot, wide shots. And, it really just shows where this person is, where the protagonist is the entire movie.
Hmm.
But that, if you go back and watch that movie, you are only going to see two types of shots, which blows my mind. It was wide shots, 16 by 9 wide shots, and close ups. That's it. And he took two angle shots that it generally takes over the shoulder shots, medium close-up shots, medium shots, distant shots. And there's so many different shots, and this man took two different camera angles and made it work the entire movie. Um, that's a great. There's so many that come to mind. Dog Millionaire. That's one of my absolute cinematography movies, and it really shows you follow a journey with the protagonist, and it was a different type of screenplay than most people have seen before because you're
You're
following.
you're starting to break up again. Your picture's frozen.
Oh my goodness!
Your audio is kind of jumping in and out.
Good.
Yeah. I can hear you. I can see you.
I'm sorry, man. Wow, we'll figure it out. But jumping right back into it, I guess I'm a fan of anyone who wants to be bold. Mel Gibson's Braveheart, Saving Private Ryan, Master and Commander, Titanic. These were all shot different. Um, so I think that's really good. I'd be curious to hear more on what you like. Bringing me on the show here, I'd be curious to know what you like.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the movies that I had listed off are kind of they really set the standard for me because not only is each not every single shot, obviously that's monumentally hard to do, but the shots that you see play out on screen, it not only captures the drama of the moment, but things like Dune, for example. Going back to Greg Fraser, something that I've noticed that he accomplishes very very well is showing a huge wide shot where the focus is not on the character but on the environment that they're in, so that you can see the scale in relation to the character versus whatever object is being shown. Like there's a shot in Dune, and it's my favorite shot in the whole film. It's so simple, but it's my favorite shot. It's when Paul Atreides, he's still on Caladan. He's wearing the black outfit, and he's basically about to say goodbye to his home, and he's kind of walking away from this lake as the ship is rising up in the background. And like the depth of field in that shot, you can just see, you can feel the distance between Paul and that ship, but that ship is still massive, and it makes him look just minuscule, even though he's closer up in the frame.
Yeah.
Uh, and and going back to Roger Deakins, Blade Runner 2049 is my all-time favorite film, and it has been since I saw it in theaters back in 2017. Like just that slow, methodical buildup of his shot composition. You know, the way that he can capture so much just by slowly zooming in on someone's face, or deliberately dragging out certain shots. I mean, it's just astounding. There's a certain feel to the way that he composes each frame that just it's not your conventional Hollywood. You know, things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, every shot is just, I mean, yeah, you can look at a film in the MCU and say that it's a well shot film, and more often than not they are, but they're just very clean, very I'm kind of reaching the point where I'm starting to think of the MCU almost like assembly line films. You know what I mean? And it's kind of a shame. You know, I'm a huge fan of the MCU, but the way that they're handling a lot of the entries into the franchise, it just feels like they're trying to meet a quota. You know?
Well, I think I beg to differ. I beg to differ. I think for a while there, up until the end at Infinity War, I think that was it. It was an assembly line. Yeah, they were telling a story, but it was very America, you know, like that. It was what you expected. The story was exactly what you expected. But now Sam Raimi coming in here with Multiverse of Madness. You know, a lot of people are off the Marvel train right now because they're so caught up on everything changing. It's not what it was. Have you seen Multiverse of Madness? You
I have.
know it was captivating in a lot of cinematography senses. You know, like the angles that they played our antagonist at, and showed her at such a level when the four, I'm not going to say who, the four people were right up there above her and playing her angles, and then them leaving Patrick Stewart, his character. But anyways, Sam Raimi, over and all, you know, he really did start. He was there for Spider-Man, Tobey Spider-Man, and if you really want to think about it, he was the kickoff to the Marvel universe doing good, doing great, and then Marvel just started coming out with, I think it was junk. It was a great storyline. Don't get me wrong, but now when you bring in Blade, and all of these other characters who have been suppressed for so long, I they're making it a broader field. They're stopping. They're not pleasing anymore, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that. They're not
Yeah.
giving the people what they want. They're showing them things they didn't know about, and it confuses them. It scares them. So Sam Raimi, you know, making the Evil Dead, Spider-Man, um, he's an OG, and I think there's a lot to come when it comes to like assembly line movies like that, like the Marvel. Like really just dive into it and look at what they're doing and how they're changing everything that we know. But then you go back to Greg Fraser and look at Dune and the cinematography he played out there. He also did a movie in 2016, I believe, called Lion. And the cinematography style is the same. That same, like how the protagonist is right there in most of the time, but you know, you see the train and everything that he's doing, it's kind of the same play. And again, when you watch the new Batman movie that just came out with Robert Pattinson, it's kind of that same style. You know, you're like, hey, this is some real Fraser vibes. And it's appreciated, but the color grading is another part of the cinematography world that just blows my mind. And their choice of audio dynamics are absolutely insane. You know, most of what we know in the audio world or in the film world about audio is a lie. Most everything you hear in a movie is done post edit. It's never done right then and there besides the characters talking to each other. So I appreciate that. Yeah, great. Craig Fraser, fantastic. Sam Raimi, fantastic. I'm excited to see what else they both do.
Yeah, yeah. It's especially Sam Raimi. He has a very unconventional style of directing, and it started all the way back in Evil Dead. And watching Multiverse of Madness, I can absolutely see that Evil Dead flavor in there, and the way, it's especially, zooming in really close on a person's face really quickly, or slowly coming in at a Dutch tilt. It's interesting. You familiarize yourself with a lot of these different filmmakers' work, and you start to be able to recognize them. Yeah, like I'd be able to recognize Greg Fraser. I'd hopefully be able to recognize Roger Deakins. I'd be very ashamed of myself if I couldn't. But yeah, and it brings it right back to cinematography especially, but filmmaking in general. It's a language, and once you learn that language and learn like the different connotations and the slang and stuff like that, you can really work to make something spectacular. And yeah, kind of going back to the MCU here, I see that they're trying to broaden the scope of the kind of material that they're giving us, and I appreciate that a whole lot. It's interesting to see, how a filmmaker can take these lesser known characters, lesser known ideas, and turn them into something very iconic.
Uh-oh. I don't know where he went. Is everyone still here?
Joined.
Are we back?
We're back.
Okay. I think it actually might that was probably a connection issue on my end, because I see my little connection meter down here, and it buzzed right down in the matter of a couple of seconds. So that was probably me.
But no, I agree with you. But I don't think they're broadening it. I think they're taking the focus like entirely, keeping that scope, and that's the confusing part for a lot of these Marvel fans. Is they're not broadening, they're not widening the scope out before they slide over to this new world that they're creating. They're straight just zooming in. Okay, Thanos. Okay, now what's on the lens? Blade, and all of these other characters we had no idea about. And I don't know why the fuck you had to throw in Harry Styles as Thanos' brother. I mean, that feels kind of like a dead end, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. There's some odd decisions being made here and there, but I mean, if nothing else, it's piqued my curiosity. So that in itself is going to get me on board. Now, but now on that topic, now obviously, big franchise films like the MCU, like DC films, Star Wars, things of that nature, they're all really big money making films, which kind of takes a lot of the focus away from the smaller films that get put out by lesser known filmmakers. And I say lesser known, but I'm going to bring up Ridley Scott. His film The Last Duel with Adam Driver and Matt Damon. I thought it was fantastic. I think it's a great film. But it completely bombed at the box office, and people try and say, oh well, it was because of what the director said about millennials or something like that. It's like no, the film bombed before he even said anything.
It wasn't
So
even millennials. It wasn't about anything offensive, and that's kind of what it is. It's art, and if you're going to be offended by art, then you need to leave.
yeah,
Cinema
definitely.
that's
And,
lasted for years. Art is something that's survived through um, millennia. They would kill people who had art in their home or had a different opinion because having art is opinion, and that's the dangerous world that we play in right now. Especially with cinematography, it's not the to make a break in, especially
yeah,
even if you're an older director, even if you are an OG and people are familiar with who you are and your work. Sometimes things just don't go well because you're right. Marvel decided to outshine everyone, and it made everything about Marvel. But then you had DC over here pretending to be backed into a corner. And if you haven't been watching, DC's been making a big play. Zack Snyder stepping back into the play. Huge fan of Zack Snyder. Um, he coming back in and redoing the Justice League movie. They had a Marvel director do initially, and him coming back in with the Snyder cut. And then while that's on the back burner, they also did. Are you familiar with the movie Brightburn?
Yes, I
And
am.
they throw it on there as DC related. They didn't even throw it as DC related, and they pretended there was no lawsuit or anything. DC was like, "Oh, we're upset that this movie is about a superhero from Kansas who could fly and shoot laser beams," but no lawsuits were filed. No, nothing was said. Everything was hushed, which makes me think DC is sitting over here in the back, charging up their guns. And Marvel's over there charging up their guns, thinking that they have everything. They're ahead of everything, but DC's over here creating a world, and they're not even saying that the movies are connected. And then Ridley Scott is walking right into the middle with Sam Raimi directing all of these movies. They're taking advantage of what already exists. Spider-Man No Way Home is an example of that. They took all three Spider-Mans that we knew as millennials, all three Spider-Mans, and put them into one movie. It didn't matter who was the director. It didn't matter what the storyline was. The second the rumors came out, everybody was about it. Huge box office hit
Yeah.
because everyone wants to be about what they already know, and that's what the Marvel universe is, and that's where it's falling off, and that's where Ridley Scott fell off. Because if Ridley Scott came back with something alien related, what would happen? It would blow up. It would have blown up. It would have hit box office. But the fact that Ridley Scott came in with something people aren't connected to, aren't familiar with, he's no longer associated, or he's no longer trying to associate with his own generation. He's trying to appease to the younger generations. And that's hard when you don't have anything to connect with them.
Right.
So that's a big part of photography a lot of people see. It's the psychological aspect of it. It's like you have to know your audience. Because if you don't have an audience, or you're not narrowing down your audience, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing with how the industry is right now, with all of these big franchise films completely dominating the box office, other films like The Last Duel are going to flop. It's almost inevitable. Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright, it was his first foray into horror, and I thought it was great, but it was another box office flop. And it's kind of a combination of these big franchise films, but it's also kind of the dark side of the coin of streaming. Everybody says, "Oh, well, I'll just wait until it comes out on stream," but it's like you forget that back in you know 2005, 2006, DVD sales were almost like another opening weekend for a lot of these films. So so in the I guess what my question is, in the sense of um, these box office numbers completely dominating the industry with these big franchise films. Does that kind of make you nervous at all to put out your own stuff, in the fear that it might get completely overlooked by the next Batman, the next Avengers, the next whatever?
Absolutely not. Because what I'm doing is something I'm connected with, and I know others would be connected with. If that was the case and I was scared, then I would only be concerned with the money. And if I live life, if I have a safety net, I know what I'm doing. Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So I think it really comes back to that. I'm not trying to appease anyone in specific right now. I'm just growing. And I think that in order to grow a fan base, you have to first have a fan. You
Yeah.
have to first get people to believe in you. I'm not in it for the money. The DVD box office, I'm not interested in that. Here. I'm not here for the fame. I'm here to tell stories. I know that they'll make it because after one after another, whether it's a box office flop or not, that's what it makes at the box office. That's not what other people are looking at. They're like, hey, you know what? All it takes is one person who's got 20, $30 million in their bank account saying, you know what? I love this movie. I want to do this. I want to do this. And then they start putting their own ideas into it. So, am I worried? No, definitely not worried. It's a very secure industry if you're doing it for the right purpose.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the thing is too, Hollywood, all they care about are those box office numbers. I mean, for the most part, within reason. I'm not gonna, sway to one extreme or the other, but box office numbers are very important to them. And so because of that, uh, well, whenever a filmmaker is trying to get, a script, taken up by, a studio or something like that, it makes things a little bit difficult because, the studio is going to look at the script and say, okay, well, how can this script make us money? And it's kind of an unfortunate aspect of the industry. I mean, at the core of it all, a film is a product put out by a company, and
Right.
so the numbers are what they care about. Now, does the idea that a script might be overlooked in favor of the next whatever big franchise film, does that discourage you at all?
No, because again, I consider myself a new age filmmaker. What I plan on doing is bringing new age filmmakers with me, people that no one's heard of, and bringing them on, finding the creative. My first idea being our company is called Starseed Family Productions, and an LLC of that is Starseed Studios. And what that does is it takes the aspect of Hollywood away from Hollywood. It's a bunch of sets, but for artists to come and use. You charge them a low rate, they come in, they use it, and that's the thing. Like most of our talent, most of our influential people right now, they live in LA because they moved to LA because that's where they've been told that luxury is. But they didn't come from there. So what happens when you set up a bunch of studios and you get a bunch of cinematographers, directors, artists of all different breeds, camera people coming in here using your studios for $50 an hour? They're like, hey, I want to know who's doing this. I get to see everything that they're doing, because it's under my roof. And then I get to pick from these people. Wow, this guy is an amazing audio engineer. I want to talk to him. I want to bring him on the project. No one knows a single one of their name except for the people that are in their corners. The only people who know my name are the people who are in my corner. The second I bring in another audio engineer, another cinematographer, more producers, then we make a team. And Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, they were shit at one point. They were a bunch of kids with a little video camera. And the
Right.
reason what they did was because each one of them took aspects of what they knew and applied it to one principle. So I definitely think it's a new way of thinking. It's not I'm going to be a rich, successful, $1 billion director, because that's not what I'm aiming for. My aim is taking down Hollywood by putting Hollywood sets or bringing Hollywood everywhere across the United States and eventually everywhere across the world so artists can be heard and they'll have a safe place to record. They won't have to go to Hollywood to try to make it big with 6 million other people.
Yeah,
So I'm
definitely.
sure that is my idea. Principle no one's done. It's a principle no one's heard of. Because everything that George Lucas, everything that Steven Spielberg did, that Scott Ridley did, it was the first of their kind. And people have been trying to imitate that instead of doing something creative. And that's where it kills us. When we decide not be genuine, original, we decide to duplicate. That's what kills us. You make a movie that's just like a Marvel movie, you're going to get treated like it's a copycat. You need to make your own original content, be very creative in what you do. When you get off this call, I want you to go look at. If you watched Euphoria at all?
I saw the first couple episodes. It's a well-made series, but the subject matter didn't connect with me.
Oh, I agree. Well, what I want you to do is dive into season two. Not context. You can mute it if you want, and just look at the last few episodes. Watch the last few episodes where the cinematographer, HBO, was like, "Fine, do whatever you want, man. Do whatever you want." And he was just like, "Okay." And you get to see the light play and watch more of the colors versus like what they're actually doing. I think that's an important piece. You should definitely check it out. I think you'll love it.
Okay.
Not the story, but the way that they tell the those first
Right.
few episodes you watch, and you're just getting introduced to the characters, and that's what they're focused on. But once you get introduced to those characters, you get to see each one of their cinematography styles because it's all different. It's mind-boggling how he nailed this. So I'm excited for you to see that. But no, I'm not. I'm not nervous. I'm not scared at all because the industry that I appease to, the industry I want to be in, is the industry that I'm creating because it doesn't exist yet. It's for artists. You know, they made YouTube for a reason. You know, and half these people from Mississippi, they're from St. Louis, Missouri, Tennessee. What brings everybody together? You know, it's studios. So you don't get famous because you go to LA. You go to LA because you get famous.
Right. I
So
got
yeah.
you. Well, that's really cool. You know, it's very admirable, and I really appreciate what you're doing. You know, it really sounds like you've got a really good and solid plan, and I always love, you know, uh, I love artists giving artists the opportunity to be artists. You know what I mean? And so yeah, what you're doing, it's fantastic. So thank you very much for what you do. Um, Now, when it comes to the filmmaking process, you know, obviously there's a lot that goes into it. You know, you know, between the shooting of the scenes to the audio editing, the video editing, just all kinds of stuff. Um, and one of my favorite little factoids that I found out a few years back was one thing that you can do that your editor will really thank you for is but before you start shooting the scene, you have everybody be quiet on set and you record like 10 to 30 seconds of room tone so that you can apply a sound profile to the scene. So in your experience, what other smaller, lesser-known details go into the process that not a lot of people talk about, but make a huge difference in the end?
Um, Post edit is a lot of what everything entails, but what I'll actually do is I'll send you some screenshots for you to share. A director who lives in the St. Louis area named Peter Balt, he really takes a play on setting a scene with light filters, and he took a bar and made it look like a Chinese restaurant. He did even like the little dim lighting above the table. I think key there or something that if you're not familiar with key grips, look into what key grips do because they completely it's another part of cinematography. I guess the whole part of cinematography is something people don't look into. I hate to leave you on such a broad answer, but cinematography as a whole is what people are out on. It is the art of making the movie versus just making the movie. Um, Key grips, don't go unknown. If there's any of you out here listening, salutations, my respect. So, yeah, pretty broad answer. For anybody who is really interested in what it is, it's cinematography. Cinematography in its entire art is what you film before post edit, before editing comes in and color grading and fixing colors or making it darker or a scene lighter, actually controlling the lighting. For example, I mean, I could take the lights that I have set up right here that you guys don't see. I just look well lit. I don't have a shadow. I can at my window, and it can be the middle of the night, and I can make it look like it's a daytime shoot. So again, that's something else I go for. It's cinematography.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You can look at a film and say, oh well, that shot looks nice, that shot looks nice, but yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of work that goes into making each shot look that way.
Right.
The example that you said, you can make a daytime shoot or a nighttime shoot look like it's in daytime, there's obviously a lot that goes into that, and not everybody thinks about that whenever they're watching a movie.
They
You
just
know
think
that
of it. Someone walked into a room with a camera. It's the middle of the day, and the sunlight just happens to hit the window perfectly that it lights up the room.
Yeah,
Um, like the temperature, the tone of the room, the sound of the room. It's all things that come into play, and it's a really big, beautiful aspect of things.
yeah, definitely. The editing process, especially in post production, it always really fascinates me. Because a few years back, I watched a movie that I'm sure that you've heard of called Birdemic, and
Yes.
it's one of the most laughable films that I've ever seen. But there's so many instances in there where you're watching it and you can catch where more editing was required. Not that you couldn't apply that idea to the entire movie, but like when the protagonist walks into a restaurant and the hostess says hi. Well, first of all, the audio sounds bad, but then as soon as she says it, you hear background audio come in behind her words that cuts out whenever her dialogue is over, and so it's like, like it kind of makes me laugh because I'm watching this. I'm like, these people must have known that that didn't sound good.
Some people just want to watch the world burn, and I think that's their creative way. If you go on and look at amateur movies, God, there's a Birdemic 3. Um,
Yeah, there is. I know.
it's terrible. But I completely agree. It was very in action, in action, in action. Play out any of the shoots. It was not even over the shoulder shots. The audio was terrible. So I mean, it was someone who got. I think someone got lucky. To be completely honest with you, I think someone got lucky, made a really shitty film, and everybody was just like, oh, you know, shitty still, and no one thinks it's like some godly movie, but it was shitty enough with the bad CGI graphic. I don't even think it was CGI. I think it was just graphics someone threw on top of the video, and then they just
Yeah,
started nothing because at some points in the movie they're not even looking at the right area where the birds are. So it's a lot.
yeah. Well, and I rag on movies like that, for the sake of the humorous conversations that it can spark. But at the same time, there's something really charming about films like that. There's something really sweet about this group of people got together, they had something in mind, and they did it. And regardless of how it came out, they still did it, and they still saw it through to the end. Yeah, and I don't know. There's something really charming about that. Movies like Birdemic, The Room, Troll 2. I mean, yeah, they're bad movies, but people still got together. People still made them, and in that sense, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and it was a lot of people who didn't know what they were doing, and that's the I think it's the beautiful part about it is because a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, everybody's caught up with everybody being a professional, They forget that sometimes a good job could entail just someone having the enthusiasm to do it. Um, Weird example with my say about it, like people in the '80s who work at Boeing. We know someone who started off as a assistant, just a phone assistant, and she was smart. And before she passed away, she was an engineer. She was an engineer for Boeing. And now everybody's like, oh, I have a master in Boeing. I want that $30,000 a year job. I have a master in engineering. People are so caught up in what they know, they forget who they know, and having fun and just having the enthusiasm to get out there and create something, thinking it doesn't have to be perfect, you know? And if it's not perfect, then, oh, why am I doing it? Well, obviously, not a single person making was like, hey, this is a good idea. Not a single one of them was a perfectionist. And it shows. It really fucking shows.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I and it's interesting. You brought up enthusiasm, for the project that these people are working on, and it's always so funny whenever you watch a film that the producers, the actors, or the director, or whoever might not have been enthusiastic about, and it really shows in the end product. Especially on the part of the actors, it's funny to see somebody put on a performance, and it's just obvious that they don't want to be there, and it really shows in the end product. Have you ever seen a film where you're watching it and you think to yourself, wow, that person just does not give a damn about what they're doing?
Absolutely. And I feel like that's half of Hollywood. That's opinionated. I opinionated, but half of them don't give a fuck what they're doing now. I think Jonah
Right,
Hill
right.
loved that. He doesn't give a fuck about what he's doing now. He's just like doing roles, to bring in some money. He's not even money hungry. He's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'll do it. There's a movie called Don't Look Up where it's just the same Jonah Hill. Like a super bad Jonah Hill. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Jonah Hill. An idea. And I see that Grant mentioned Trancers. Are you familiar with Trancers?
I'm not actually.
So it's a bounty hunter from a bounty hunter travels back in time in the 1980s to hunt someone down. Oh,
Oh, jeez. So sorry about that. I think I cut out again. You had left off at Bounty Hunter travels to the 1980s.
yeah, a bounty travels back to the 1980s to find someone who turn people into zombies. And they made like, correct me if I'm wrong, Grant. They probably made, I think, around. They made a lot of movies. And the thing is, if you go online, you'll find out most places were like, yeah, this is a great idea. This was a great idea, and it was an absolute rip. So I did appreciate your comment, Grant, because I have seen Transfers, and it's not something I would sit through again, but it was very enjoyable to watch that first time.
Now, what are some of your biggest pet peeves when it comes to either a film or the filmmaking process? What do you encounter, or what do you hope not to see, and when you see it, it just really really gets under your skin?
Um, Actually, audio pisses me. Um, there was the creator of Inception. He released a movie not too long ago. What was that movie?
Was it Tenet?
Yes. And if you watch it, the audio is off. The audio is actually down, like towards, supposed to be like right here in the middle. The audio is down, and all the music is loud. And I actually watched every single time. Even though I like to watch every single movie with subtitles, it's a movie I like. Literally, I'm like, okay, I have to put subtitles on, like specifically to understand what's going on here because it's so quiet. So
Yeah.
proper video, I completely agree with that. If you're not isolating your voice, you know, on a separate profile, like what you said, a lot of film directors like setting a room, you know, a noise, and they like just playing that noise for about 30 seconds, so you know what it is. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know what noise it is. So number one pet peeve, yes, mistaken audio. So it's funny you brought up because that movie is terrible through and through with audio.
I haven't seen it yet. Actually, I've seen a lot of Christopher Nolan's work, but I haven't seen Tenet yet. It is on my list. It's saved on my HBO Max account, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Um, I would say that probably my biggest one is poor editing. And well, mostly in the shots themselves. Like, did you ever see the movie? I think it came out like 2005. It had Zoe Saldana. It's called Colombiana.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that film was directed by Olivier Megaton, and the way he films action, it's nauseating. It's mostly nothing but close-ups, and like I'd say the median shot length for every single shot is maybe a quarter of a second.
No, he had the camera guy like close up. Like,
Yeah, I know. And or in Taken 3 with Liam Neeson, he directed that one also. Olivier Megaton did. And the biggest meme that gets thrown around as far as that movie goes is there's a scene where Liam Neeson's chasing somebody and he jumps over a fence. Well, him jumping over a fence is divided up into literally 8 or 9 shots. And
yeah, over and
yeah,
over.
it's so terrible, and that's like my biggest thing. It's like anytime that I'm watching any kind of action film, that's my biggest thing. If the action is filmed poorly, I'm not gonna like it.
I think the only time that was appropriate was in Like Mike, um, where they showed like the final winning shot at the end of the movie, like from several different angles.
Yeah.
And I agree. It's completely unnecessary. Like, find a fucking angle, stick with it. Yeah, you are very analytical. You should probably be in the film industry. You need to stop working in the medical industry and join the dark side. We have cookies.
No, yeah, well, trust me. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I would have definitely gone to film school. But I didn't really discover my love for film until I think I think 21 or 22. I started watching like Chris Stuckman, the Nostalgia Critic, and people like that, and it kind of jump started my love for looking at film critically. And because it's funny. A lot of people watch film and they can say oh yeah, I thought it was a good movie, I thought it was a bad movie, but a lot of them aren't really able to articulate why. Um, it's like, okay, well, what'd you like about it? It's like, oh, I like that one scene, it was really badass. It's like, okay, but like, what about it though? I'm not trying to say that oh yeah, get on my level or anything like that. It's more that I look at things from a certain perspective, it took me connecting with these other film critics to discover that I could look at it from that perspective. Is that something that you've always been attuned with, or was that something you kind of discovered a little bit later?
A little bit later, actually. And like I said, all of this has really happened in the last year, but I fell in immersively. All of the ideas I presented to you about who I am and what I do, it's all come into fruition. I'm speaking it as I'm doing all of it. Speak about it.
Gotcha. Um, what my last question here, because we're just about approaching an hour here, and generally these streams tend to go for about an hour.
Yep.
My last question for you is if you had the opportunity to work alongside any one particular filmmaker, whether it's a director, producer, director of photography, or anything, or composer, who would be like your dream team up? Who would you want to work with above all else?
Oh, yeah, Marcel Rav for cinematography. Just I would shadow that man. I would watch that man shit. Just to say, how does he do the lighting? I'd say Han, Interstellar. The soundtrack was fantastic. Mix that with in some like John Williams, and I'd have to jump right back into Zack Snyder. I'd work hand in hand. I'd love to work hand in hand with that man. That is one hell of a team. I'd love to see what they push together. If it was some kind of super gothic alien Jurassic Park, but with high schoolers in it, I don't fucking. But it's a dream team. They don't work. I don't think they would work well together at all. So I don't know if it would be more of a nightmare movie. But that's kind of where I am with it. As I learn more about cinematography, I grow, and I grow into finding more people that I admire. But that's it for now.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, Hans Zimmer. He's my absolute favorite composer working right now. I mean, him, Denis Villeneuve, my favorite director. I mean, if those two ever got together, I would eat it up. I would absolutely eat it up. As far as I'm concerned, they can do no wrong. All
I
right.
and I completely agree.
Alrighty. Well, then that's gonna mark the end of our little interview here. I've been Cam of Cam and Focus, and Tannen, go ahead and give yourself a send off. Let us know again what you're working on, what we have to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm just bringing artists together. My mission statement is to bring artists of every single kind together under one company, under one roof, where they can work safely and reorientate Hollywood away from Hollywood, and bring life back into their eyes. Anywhere can be Hollywood if you dream big enough. So
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a very, very admirable mission that you're on. All right. Well, don't forget to like and subscribe. Our YouTube channel is approaching 1,700. I think we're 5 subs away. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. If you haven't liked our Facebook page, we're getting close to 22,000 likes. Please come by. Interact with us on our posts. We're always reaching out. We're always communicating with people. And that's gonna be about it. You all have a good day, and I will see you next time.